All right, diving in. Today we're going deep on modern dating,
Ooh, exciting.
but specifically where money and romance collide.
Always interesting.
Big thanks to OtisWho Network for supporting this deep dive.
Absolutely.
So get this, we've got a guy's story, a dating coach's advice, and a YouTuber's hot take, all about finances in dating.
Sounds juicy.
Our mission to decode these different perspectives and maybe, just maybe, challenge our own assumptions along the way.
I'm in. I think what's so fascinating is how these sources really expose those unspoken, kind of uncomfortable financial expectations that are swirling around in the dating world.
Right, like everyone's playing this game.
But nobody wants to talk about the rules.
Okay, so first up, this guy shares a recording, a phone call, where a woman he went on one date with
Oh, boy.
asks him for $1,000.
Whoa, hold on.
She said she needs it so she doesn't have to go to work, and it's heavily implied she means sex work. And the guy is shocked. He even says this whole experience reinforces his belief that it's hard to tell the difference between women who are genuinely interested in a relationship
Okay, yeah.
and those who are, in his words, selling their cheeks.
It's definitely a curveball. I get why he's reacting that way.
Yeah.
But, before we jump to any conclusions,
Right.
we are only hearing one side of this story.
Yeah.
We're missing so much context.
Absolutely.
What's her situation? Are there financial pressures we're not seeing? Personal circumstances?
Such a good point. It's easy to judge,
Mm-hmm.
but there might be way more to this story.
Totally.
Okay, let's switch gears to this dating coach.
All right.
She's all about teaching women how to get men to do stuff for you.
Okay. Interesting.
And her advice is, well, let's say bold.
Okay. I'm listening.
Be upfront about your expectations. Imply that your exes spoiled you rotten.
Hmm.
And even use like subtle manipulation to get men to offer help.
Yeah.
She even suggests pretending your boss is going to pay for your oil change, so a date will offer to do it instead.
I mean, what's interesting here is that she's straight up laying out tactics that play on traditional gender roles and expectations.
Yeah, totally.
She's tapping into this desire men have to be providers, to be competitive, and even their insecurities.
Oh, for sure. And she even tells women to be okay with being perceived as an escort,
Whoa. Okay.
which is,
Yeah, that's a loaded statement for sure.
it really is.
I mean, it definitely blurs the lines between what some might consider savvy dating
Right.
and what others would see as straight-up manipulation.
Yeah.
Makes you think, where are the ethical boundaries when you're influencing someone's behavior, especially with money involved? That's a question every listener is going to have to wrestle with.
No easy answers.
Yep.
Speaking of strong opinions, we got to talk about this YouTuber.
Oh, yeah.
He analyzed the guy's story and the dating coach's advice,
Okay.
and he does not hold back.
Go on.
He calls these behaviors straight up escorting
Wow.
and questions if it's even moral.
That's a strong word, escorting. It carries a lot of baggage, assumptions. Is he using it to critique what he sees as manipulation?
Right.
Or is he accidentally perpetuating harmful stereotypes about women and dating?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
He also talks about how some women are writing a bad check
What does he mean?
by implying future intimacy in exchange for financial support.
Ooh, okay.
This guy is pushing buttons trying to get a reaction.
His language is definitely attention-grabbing,
Oh, yeah,
but it does make you think critically.
for sure.
Is this a valid critique of behavior that could be manipulative, or is it adding to this harmful narrative about transactional relationships?
It's messy.
It really is. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
So here we are, three very different perspectives.
Yeah.
We've got the guy feeling shocked, maybe taken advantage of. The dating coach telling women to be upfront about their financial needs, even if it involves, like, strategy. And then the YouTuber using strong language to call out what he sees as unethical behavior.
It's crucial to remember, though,
Yeah.
these are just 3 viewpoints
Out of many.
out of many. The reality is, power dynamics and financial expectations in dating, they're complicated.
So complicated.
There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Nope.
What feels manipulative to one person could be totally fine to another.
Yeah, that's true.
It depends on your values, your experiences.
Right, so how do we even navigate this without getting lost in judgment or assumptions?
I think the key is open and honest communication,
Okay, I like that.
both with ourselves and our partners.
Mhm.
We have to be clear about our own values and boundaries around money and dating,
Yeah.
and be willing to have those potentially awkward conversations about expectations and what we're comfortable with.
Makes sense. Sweeping these issues under the rug just leads to, like, resentment and misunderstandings later.
Exactly. Avoiding those conversations can end up costing you more than just a few dollars.
So true. This has been fascinating so far.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to explore these ideas even further. And a huge thanks to OtisWho Network for sponsoring this deep dive into the, let's be honest, sometimes thorny world of modern dating.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny. It's like we're conditioned to avoid talking about money,
Oh, absolutely.
especially in dating.
Yeah,
But it's so weird, right? Because it's such a fundamental part of life.
it really is.
And it impacts our relationships no matter what.
It's true. We talk about everything else, hopes and dreams, our
Yeah.
favorite Netflix shows,
Yeah.
but money, taboo.
Totally taboo. And that silence, it breeds assumptions and misunderstandings.
Oh, yeah.
We project our own values and expectations onto our partners without even realizing it.
So how do we break the taboo? How do we start these conversations, especially early on when everything feels so fragile?
I think approaching it with curiosity is key.
Okay.
A genuine desire to understand the other person's perspective.
Not like an interrogation.
No, not at all. More like creating a safe space for open and honest dialogue.
I like that. Building trust and connection.
Exactly. Instead of like a power struggle,
Right.
you could start by sharing your own experiences with money, your values.
Okay.
Like, hey, I'm pretty independent. I prefer to split things evenly.
Yeah.
Or I'm working towards some big financial goals, so I'm mindful of my spending.
That's a good way to open the conversation without making it too intense.
Right. And by sharing your own perspective,
Yeah.
you're inviting the other person to do the same.
To open up.
To open up, exactly. You're signaling that it's okay to talk about this stuff.
You know, this reminds me of something the YouTuber said.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
He said that women especially should be upfront about their financial needs and expectations,
Okay.
even if it means, like, risking coming across as transactional.
That's provocative.
It is,
I can see how it could be misinterpreted.
for sure.
I think what he's getting at is the importance of authenticity
Okay.
and transparency. If you have certain financial needs in a relationship, it's better to be upfront about them than to hide them or play games.
But isn't there a risk of scaring people off by being too direct, especially early on?
I mean, there's always a risk of incompatibility in dating.
That's true.
But wouldn't you rather know sooner than later if your values don't align?
I guess so.
You want to be with someone who respects your needs and boundaries,
That makes sense.
both financial and emotional.
Right. It's about being true to yourself and finding someone who appreciates you for who you are.
Exactly. And your financial outlook is a part of that.
Totally. And these conversations, they don't have to be heavy or awkward.
No, not at all.
You can weave them into your everyday interaction.
Absolutely. Like if you're planning a date,
Okay.
you could say, I'm feeling something low-key tonight. How about pizza and a movie at my place?
Yeah, that's subtle.
Right. You're communicating your preferences without making it a big deal.
It's about integrating these conversations naturally.
Exactly.
And we've been focusing on early dating, but these conversations become even more important as relationships progress.
Oh, absolutely. Because as relationships evolve,
So do financial dynamics?
things change.
What worked in the honeymoon phase might not be sustainable long term.
So how do we navigate those transitions without creating conflict?
Communication and adaptability.
I like that.
Be willing to have those check-in conversations as your relationship grows.
Okay.
Discuss your goals, individually and together.
Makes sense.
Figure out what works best for both of you.
It's just so many people avoid these conversations
Yeah.
because they're terrified of conflict.
It's understandable, but
Well-
avoiding conflict often leads to bigger problems down the line.
True. It's like that saying,
Ron?
a stitch in time saves 9.
Exactly. Addressing those issues early can prevent them from becoming major roadblocks later.
So we need to be proactive, have those conversations, even if they're uncomfortable.
Yes. For the sake of building a healthy and sustainable relationship.
And that's what we all want, right?
I think so. At the end of the day, isn't that the goal?
This has given me a lot to think about. It's easy to get swept up in the romance.
And forget about the practical side of things.
Yeah.
Money matters.
It does. And the more open and honest we are about it,
Yeah.
the better we'll be at navigating these complex modern relationships.
This deep dive has been insightful, a real look into the world of money and dating.
It has been fascinating.
And huge thanks to OtisWho Network for supporting us and exploring these important conversations.
Couldn't have done it without them.
It's wild, right? We've got this guy feeling completely blindsided.
Yeah.
A dating coach with some, let's say, unconventional tactics, and a YouTuber who's, well, not mincing words.
Nope.
It seems like everyone's got a strong opinion about how money and dating should or shouldn't mix.
And what's so interesting is that none of these perspectives is necessarily wrong.
That's true.
They all just highlight the different ways people approach this whole thing,
Right.
shaped by their own experiences, values, all of that.
Like we're all trying to figure out this unwritten rule book.
Yeah.
And sometimes those rules just totally clash.
Absolutely. What's a red flag for one person might be a non-issue for someone else.
And that's where those open and honest conversations are so important.
Couldn't agree more.
It's about understanding each other's expectations and maybe finding some common ground.
Exactly.
You know, thinking back to that guy in the first story,
Yeah.
he seemed to draw a very clear line between dating and, like, transactional relationships.
He did.
But is that line even that clear anymore?
It's definitely more nuanced these days.
I think
With
so.
online dating, sugar dating apps, changing social norms.
Right, it's all changing.
Those lines are getting blurrier, that's for sure.
So is that a good thing? A bad thing?
I wouldn't say it's inherently either.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing that things are evolving and we need to adapt how we communicate, how we understand things.
So maybe instead of judging or assuming,
Right.
we should be focusing on having those open conversations
Yes.
about what we want, what we need.
Regardless of where it falls on that spectrum.
Exactly.
It's about personal autonomy, transparency, respecting each other's choices.
I think this whole deep dive has really made me examine my own beliefs about money and dating.
Me too, for sure.
It's like, how self-aware am I really?
It's a good question to ask.
And am I approaching these conversations with an open mind?
That's key.
A willingness to learn, to grow.
Absolutely.
So before we wrap up, any final words of wisdom for our listeners out there navigating this crazy world of modern dating?
Just remember, there's no one right way to do this.
Okay, I like that.
Be true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Communicate openly. Don't shy away from those tough conversations.
Yeah,
And remember, it's totally okay to have different expectations and boundaries than other people.
right.
The most important thing is finding someone who aligns with your values.
Yeah.
Someone who makes you feel respected and valued.
Beautifully said. This deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
I agree.
And I hope our listeners feel empowered to have those conversations about money and dating.
I hope so too.
And of course, a huge thank you to OtisWho Network for sponsoring this episode. It's been thought-provoking.
For sure.
Until next time, happy dating, everyone.